Honorable Minister, dear guests, first I would like to thank the International Forum of Americas for hosting this magnificent event. You know, it's 3 fantastic days ahead of us, and it's only the first day and a lot has happened already. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Gus Sarrouh, and I'm the CEO of Egis in North America. You might not have heard of Egis, or should I say, you might not have heard of Egis yet. But Egis is a leading global engineering firm with offices in 120 countries, with more than 18,000 employees across the world. We create and operate intelligent infrastructure and buildings to help achieve a more balanced, sustainable, and resilient developments. We support all stages of infrastructure, life cycle from early studies, design to operations. We provide services for all types of infrastructure, from roads to bridges to rail to transit, buildings and nuclear facilities. The reason I'm in front of you today is to introduce the Honorable Mr. Champagne, and I can testify the attractiveness of international investment in Canada. Minister Champagne has worked with one of the most important private investments in the country and that this country has ever seen, and that's the EV battery factory in Northvolt in Quebec. Egis has also invested in Canada. The acquisition last summer of the engineering firm McIntosh Perry. One of the reasons Egis invested in Canada is the size of the infrastructure market. Canada and the US have planned massive investments to rehabilitate and modernize infrastructure across North America. And, Honorable Minister, you are well aware of the needs of current infrastructure sector as you oversaw the federal government's ambitious $187 billion infrastructure investment plan when you were a Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Another reason Egis invested in Canada is to help the challenges of decarbonization. We ended 2022 with a historic peak in carbon emissions, despite our commitment to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Egis has helped other countries achieve their decarbonization goals, and we're looking forward to working with Canadian authorities to contribute to reducing the carbon footprint of infrastructure projects. I'd like to introduce Honorable Minister François-Philippe Champagne. He was first elected in 2015 as MP of Saint-Maurice Champlain. In 2017, he was appointed Minister of International Trade. In 2018, he was appointed Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, and then appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs in 2019, and oversaw the creation of Canada's Declaration Against Arbitrary Detention in State-to-State Relations, which more than 60 countries have endorsed. He now has the responsibility of overseeing the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Industry. He has also worked in the private sector, notably for ABB Group and AMAC Foster Wheeler, and well understands stakes in international development for both public and private sector. I'd like to pass this over to the Honourable Minister and Rocco Rossi, CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great to be with all of you. Champagne in the afternoon. Not bad. I look at the time. It's almost 3 o'clock.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
So it's 5 o'clock somewhere. No, but thank you. What an amazing panel before, by the way. 2 of the people that I admire talk about humility, talk about life, talk about work-life balance, and I could take some advice from any of you on that.
Well, what's even more remarkable, I don't know about the rest of you, but I am living the dream, right? Not only do I get to interview Minister Energizer Bunny, Canada's greatest salesperson, but as a BCG alum, I have always dreamed of the notion that one day Dominic Barton and Victor Dodig would be my warm-up act. So life is very good for me, and I hope it is for you as well. But in all seriousness, we all need to do an enormous applause to Dominic Barton for the incredible work he did in bringing the two Michaels back. That was an open wound on the Canadian spirit, and his work, along with others, truly, truly important. Look, this guy, not only the Energizer Bunny, but the Energizer Bunny in 3 languages, right? French, English, we all know. But he also has the 3rd official language of Canada, particularly here in the GTA, and that is Italian.
Sure.
So, benvenuto,
Grazie
onorevole.
Grazie mille.
Possiamo parlare in italiano?
Possiamo continuare in...
All right, we're not going to do it in Italian. We're going to get down to things. And I know that when the Prime Minister asked you to be Minister of Innovation, Science, and Industry, you never thought that you would have to think of innovative pricing around turkeys. This was not your dream. But look at
flyers.
Yeah, but look at we all know in the last 24 months, really generational investment in EV batteries, things that we did not think would happen again. Governments are not particularly known for their ability to pick winners, but you guys have gone all in on EV batteries. Why EV batteries, and why is this the best bet right now for Canada?
Well, first of all, thank you, everyone, for being here. It's a great, and I want to say a big round of applause to the organization. I was really amazed that they say Minister this year again. I think it's the 17th edition that we're doing that, and I think it's one of the most important forums to bring people together. Listen, I don't know if it was by choice or by design, but when I entered the role of industry minister, some were even looking at the demise of the auto sector in Canada. I'll put that in a book one day, but I'll give you some of the chapters. We were looking at that, and some of the first briefing were saying, Minister, the way things are going, either we meet this generational opportunity, or else we're going to see a decline in the auto sector in Canada. And the auto sector is not just like the OEM that we know, but it's all the supply chain. It's 500,000 people in the country. So when I look back, I said, listen, when is in your lifetime that you're going to see a transition in technology that big? I mean, people could say, well, the internet was one of them. But certainly, if I look at the average age in the room, when you go from the combustion engine to the electric engine, you say, well, this could be a great opportunity for Canada. So how do we go about that? And then we started looking how the market came about. And I must say the IRA in the United States, the Inflation Reduction Act, was really a game changer in the industry in reshoring manufacturing. And I'm always one to believe that innovation plus manufacturing equal prosperity. If you look at South Korea, if you look at Taiwan, if you look at Germany, I mean, those who have weathered times in different period of the economic cycle, I think manufacturing is key. And therefore, when I start looking at that and you say, how can we position Canada and what's our answer to that? And I must tell you, and I know this is on the record, but I'll be very honest with you, when we started the journey, I was not sure at all that we would even have one gigafactory in Canada. Let alone 3 of them, because at the time, people were questioning, could we really win with the United States? We're not the reserve currency of the world. We cannot outcompete a number of states in the United States. But I would say it always started with one conversation, and I'll put that in the book again. When I went to see Volkswagen, I remember my first trip in Germany, some of the people in our department were saying, Minister, why would you spend taxpayer money to go to Germany? They've never been in Canada. There's no chance that it will ever come. And I say, well, if I take my business 101 if we never talk to them, there's little chance they will ever come, by the way. So if I want to get new customer, I better get my suitcase and on. And then we went with Invest Canada, and I remember talking to the Germans, and they said, Minister, they invited me to their leadership conference, so the 500 leaders of the 12 brands, and they say, you have half an hour to make a pitch. Why Canada? And I must say from there, it was fairly interesting. I got a call from Mercedes-Benz the same weekend, say, Minister, we have our board meeting. Do you mind coming a presentation? I say, it's amazing. If we start winning, we're going to win. And actually, for me, when I was at Mercedes, it was quite interesting. They said it was the first time at the board meeting they had introduction, Canada, and conclusion, and I was Canada for about 15 to 20 minutes. But the point of that was, and I like the word of ambition. I always finish, those who have been with me at different, I always say, let's seize the moment, let's be ambitious. And I knew that if we could only get one of them, we would really position Canada in a much different place in the eyes of the world. And now, you may have seen Bloomberg rank Canada second in the world for the battery ecosystem, after China, but out of the United States. And we achieved that in about 12 to 18 months. So my message was always, everything is possible. If we put the mind, if we work together, we work a lot with the Ontario government. We did the same thing with the government of Quebec. And now, not only we got Volkswagen, the first gigafactory outside of Europe, we've got Northvolt, Stellantis, and then Ford and GM made other investments. So for me, I knew that people say you have a bit of energy, maybe, but when you wake up in the morning, you say, I could not think that as a country we could afford to miss that generational opportunity. Here we are today. Not only we landed one, we landed three, and I think that history will tell that this was probably a watershed moment for Canada. How do we position ourselves in the world in one of the technology of the future?
No question that part of how you made Canada so much stronger in that bidding is the bromances that people talk about between you and Fideli and Fitzgibbon. And you're going to need that kind of all of Canada teamwork in order to deal with the long-term future, because part of what gives us that #2 ranking in Bloomberg is the ability, at least in theory, to vertically integrate all the way back to the mines. Yeah. How are we going to change the reality that today it takes an average of 15 years to permit a mine in Canada, and that is not the reality in the rest of the world?
No, we need to do a far better job, and I like the bromance thing. It's kind of interesting. I remember Doug Ford once said, whatever, and I hope Premier won't hold that against me, but I've heard people say that if Champagne says something, I'll pay half of it. It was in the battery ecosystem, by the way. Because, from an investor, let's look at that. We were attracting people who had never really looked at Canada. You talk about the Korean firms, you talk about the Japanese firms. I remember I used to be trade minister back in 2016, I think. That was my time when we signed the TPP. And even as minister at the time, it was very difficult to get a meeting with Japanese ministers because Canada was not on the map, really, I would say, in many ways. But today in the world where the three things that are top of mind, I would say, to any business leader, head of state, head of government, we had the Chancellor of Germany, President of Korea, Prime Minister of Japan. It's all about food security, energy security, and supply chain resiliency. And therefore, Canada becomes kind of that beacon of I would say, when you're looking for the partner in the world which has a lot of challenge, we stand out. Stability, predictability, the rule of law. When people are making big bets, they're now looking at Canada. And to your point, how we did that was really to present a Team Canada approach. I go back to the Chrétien kind of Team Canada, where people were going with a plane and were promoting what we could do. I think we have a newer version of that post-COVID. But in a way, we needed to bring the message, because I keep saying, not everyone in the world wakes up in the morning thinking about Canada. I do, and I hope many of you do. But if you look on the global scale, a lot of people need to be told about the Canadian story and why Canada. And I think what we've done with Premier Ford, what we've done with Premier Legault, what we've done with Vic, and obviously Pierre Fitzgibbon, is to present to potential investor that kind of concierge services that people are finding attractive. We're small enough to know each other and big enough to be attractive. And I keep remembering, in the words of the CEO of Volkswagen, Oliver, said, you're one of the few, I think maybe he said the few, but that gave me a cell phone the first day we met. And these small things build trust, and obviously you go from there.
Cell phone number. You don't hand out cell phones as you go
out.
I
meant my phone number. My cell phone number. But building trust, making the case for Canada. But I think this is all of our effort. I just happen to be one of those who make the pitch. But collectively, I think in the world, like I said, which is fraught with And sadly, we've seen the horror taking place in Israel today. And I look at the world and the challenge in the Taiwan Strait and the high inflation in Europe, the price of energy. I always challenge people to say Canada remains very attractive. Now, you know, it's a bit like if you go to London on Ambassador Row and you look at the houses and you say, well, from the outside, we're fairly attractive. You look at different places and you say, I remember I was with the CEO of Mubadala, and he said, Minister, if it was your money, where would you invest it? And he took a map and he started looking at country, and obviously, he said, Canada is very attractive. That being said, that doesn't mean we don't need to fix the plumbing inside the house, that we don't need to fix the electricity, that we need to bring new furniture. And we need to get our, I would say, our act together to make sure that on one end, we have a predictable process that people, you know, I think business can adapt to anything when they know it's predictable. And I think predictability is the big thing at the same time where we engage local community and First Nations to make sure we do that. But we definitely need to up our game in that because I think we have tremendous potential and the world is craving. I mean, you don't need to take it from me. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the Japanese Minister of the Economy of MITI, which is the all-powerful Ministry of Economy in Japan. And unbeknownst to me, he called me, he said, Minister, we want to sign an agreement with Canada on critical minerals and supply chain. But unbeknownst to me, it was the first one that Japan ever signed with any country in the world. And he said, we chose Canada. So now what you see, in my view, you see more and more people choosing Canada. So that's why I think it's our moment to seize if we want to lead in the economy of the 21st century. And it started with a vision to be the green supply of choice, understanding that what consumers want is not an electric car, they want a green car. And that's why with Dominic, we started with aluminum with Rio Tinto. So we're producing the greenest aluminum in the world. Actually, in Saguenay, in their facility, that the investment we announced with them just about 3 months ago, that is the first smelter ever announced in the world since the one I think is in Iceland. And it's going to be the largest smelting area in the world outside of China. And then you think what we've done with the Fasco, ArcelorMittal, what we're doing with Algoma Steel in trying to do green steel, green battery. I'm looking at green semiconductor. I think if we are on that track to decarbonize, I think we have a head start and we can lead the world in that new economy where you have the green revolution and the digital revolution. So AI, quantum, and cyber, in addition to the green industrial assets that we're going to build. I think we are in a way to win. And for me, winning brings success, and success attracts success.
I'm really delighted that you raised your time as Minister of Trade. You also have the unique experience of being at External, and you've raised the issue of critical minerals. Clearly, we're in a world that is somewhat different with the illegal, unjust invasion of the Ukraine by Russia, with growing tensions. You had just a little over a year ago, after some study, decision by your ministry and you, I presume, to force Chinese companies to divest in 3 Canadian companies in the critical mineral space, including one that was domiciled in Canada, in Calgary, but has all of its operations in Chile. So help us to understand, we're here at a global forum, we're talking about economic resilience, and yet there seems to be blocks being created. What does that look like for you? How do you win within that world and that growing tension?
Well, the world has changed. You know, I remember if you go back to 2015 and where you look at the world today, there's a lot of things that have changed. When it came to critical mineral, I was pretty clear to the world that we're going to be protecting our assets. I mean, you know, this is key to fuel the economy of the 21st century. It's not about battery, it's about semiconductor. And we've seen what it can cause when you don't have the microchip in the economy. I mean, a lot of the inflation has been supply-driven, not only demand-driven this time. And therefore, I think it was a responsible thing for a country like Canada. Listen, you know, when you have what the world needs, you become very attractive very quickly. You know, I go in many parts of the world. It's not that they like us. They'd like to marry us, you know. We go and they say, what can you supply, Minister? Is there more we could do? Can we sign this? Can we supply? So obviously for me and my colleagues, I see Leah Taylor is with me here from a colleague in Parliament, we had to rethink and providing new tools. So under the Invest in Canada Act, I needed to push to have new tools because people are getting smarter in the ways as how they're looking at assets and how they can strain assets. And we needed to send a clear signal that in the world, we're not going to do what my grandfather did at the time, which in Shawinigan, it's kind of, or my uncles or others, like cutting wood and shipping that to be transformed somewhere else down south. I mean, we're smart enough, we're mature enough as an economy to be able to add value. And this, for me, is taking our critical minerals to process. That's why what you've seen, it's not about only the big OEMs that we've announced, but everything like Umicore, which is the first PCAM, the precursor to the cathodes in the battery. They chose Canada to come in North America. Belgian company, they said, if you don't take Umicore today, you have to take a Chinese company. There's only 2 in the world. And so I think that we are demonstrating to the world that we know that our resources are going to be key. We want to make sure we do transformation as much as we can in the value chain to capture the value. But at the same time, we're clear that we're going to be there with our partners and allies around the world, which need that. And that's why I think in this world, I mean, I always say, and you've been with me, and I want to thank you because with the Chamber of Commerce and with you've been a partner of choice. But there's 5 things that attract people to Canada. I always say, people always ask me, what's your pitch? And although I'm going to put it in the book, but I'm going to put that now out there. But the first one is around talent. People always talk to me about subsidies, interestingly, in the media. And I say, how do you think I can win against the reserve currency of the world, which is just down south, with states and governors and counties and cities which are able to offer things like that? But one thing I can compete is on talent. And I would say Canada remains a huge magnet for talent. And it's not only in the EV sector. Just look at the investment of Nokia and Ericsson. I mean, both Nokia and Ericsson decided to put their R&D center in Canada, just north of Ottawa. Both of them, I think you're talking about $1.5 billion or $1.3 billion they've invested because they realized that, the Silicon Valley of the North is in Canada, which has been attracting a lot. The second thing is the ecosystem. I think the world realized that, we're the 3rd largest country in the world for manufacturing aircraft. The Windsor-Detroit corridor is about the 3rd in the world to manufacture cars. We are building the battery ecosystem. These ecosystems allow us to attract because we have enough in the aerospace industry, in biomanufacturing, in the car manufacturing to be attractive. The 3rd one is critical minerals. And it's not only having critical minerals, but I would say it's proximity to resources, assembly lines, and markets. And I know there was a discussion about markets, which is very compelling because you would say other jurisdictions have rare earth metals or critical minerals, but they're very far from market. And if you talk to the big companies today, they make most of their money in the United States. So obviously, Canada is fairly attractive to that. The 4th one is around renewable energy. And I think that's a discussion we need to have in our country. I come from a generation where we thought generation of energy was almost endless. And now we're facing choices, what we can accept or not. And I think in the world where people want to decarbonize, renewable energy is key. And 5, I think the panel said it, is access to market. You will never see me talk of Canada as a country of 40 million people. I remember joking with my Indian counterpart at the time. I said, I have market access to 1.5 billion people. How many do you have again? 1.5 billion people in some of the most advanced market in the world, but also growing. If you think in Asia, in Japan, in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Singapore, same thing what we've done. We're the only G7 country with a free trade agreement with all the other G7 nations. So, and if you look at the world today, one thing I can probably say without being wrong is I don't think there'll be a lot of trade agreements in the near future in the world, sadly. But Canada, I think either by foresight or luck, we are already well positioned. And I can tell you, people, when they look at Canada, or either for inbound investment, but also for export, that really matters because today, if you're in Canada, you have access to to all the key markets of the world, being in a very geostrategic position, having access to the Pacific, the Atlantic, next to the United States. You're 10 hours from Japan by flight. I mean, this is a place where people want to be.
And all of that is true, and all of that is worth celebrating. But as Monsieur Audet teed up in his comments ahead of the two Ds, Dominic and Dodig, there is still the issue of productivity. As cool as EV batteries are, unicorns in the tech space, phenomenal, really important, but we have a $2 trillion legacy economy, and we're getting our butts handed to us in terms of productivity. How, as the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, how are we going to change that trend line?
Well, that's the, how much say, that's a $1,000 question. You know, this is not only the two guys on the stage, but it's all of us where we've been trying to crack that nut. But I think I am hopeful, and people even say sometimes optimistic. And I think you need to be, because I read a book that says, you know, the country cannot be more optimistic than its leaders. And I think it's incumbent on us to also have this level of enthusiasm and ambition and being optimistic. I always, he was talking about a book, and I'm reading, right now I'm reading a book that says Relentless Focus, and it's always thinking about what's the solution to what you can, you know, to the challenge you can be presented. I think technology is going to help us. I mean, I am very hopeful about the potential of AI. I think the fact that we're going to move from fear to opportunity when we have built trust, I think AI can really help us to make our industries more competitive. I think that the head start we have in quantum computing is also going to be a key for productivity, and I would add to cyber. So when you think about the pyramid of where Canada is going, and from an industrial perspective, I always say AI, quantum, and cyber will be the basis, and then we'll have these other industries that will build upon that. So I'm hopeful with that. And also, if we could deploy 5G, I was with people. This is within the realm of the possible in our country. If people are connected, if we have 5G, and if we have a framework that gives trust to people to believe in the power of AI, responsible AI, I think that we can have this productivity gap closed, and certainly that's the challenge for all of us. But you know what? I know time is up because they put the light up. I just want to say, let's seize the moment. I never, you know, I think it's our moment to seize as Canada for the 21st century. Let's be ambitious, and I hope each and every one of you will leave this forum with a level of ambition that could be transcended to the rest of Canada. And let's make sure that together we build the Canada of the 21st century. And with all of you, I think everything is possible.
Never